a brand new concept in Doctor Who, time manipulation, and finally I have a theory for the general series arc, the overarching theme in the entire series. This is big news, guys. If you've just watched that episode 3 of series 11 of Doctor Who, then we're going to talk about it right now. I'm going to review every part of it, the story, character arcs, and like I said, the series arc. Well, I've now got a theory. Like I say, it's Sunday. It's time for Doctor Who review. Remember before, if you haven't already, subscribe to Planet Mark and hit that bell notification to be told of the next great upload. Got loads of other things on Planet Mark, so definitely don't leave this channel. And check out our other 2 reviews we've already got. So, let's look in detail at Doctor Who, Rosa. So firstly, the entire episode is, as we all know, and it's not been hidden at all, it's about Rosa Parks. And it's nice seeing Doctor Who actually dealing with a real life figure and like a real life historical event of like a controversial nature. I mean, I was a bit weary because of the other episode of the Matt Smith generation with Let's Kill Hitler. You know, that sounded like a really cool historical episode, and it turned out it was a load of rubbish. Did not like that episode at all. But this Rosa one, it was nice that they're actually doing it properly and actually going through history, actual historical events. And you really get a feel of Ryan's character in this episode as well. But let's walk through the story. Firstly, we get told about Artron energy. That's the power which fuels the TARDIS. I don't remember them ever talking about Artron energy before. I always thought it was just time vortex energy, like the energy from the time vortex, and they get from the little slip in time in Cardiff. But that was way back. I don't know, like I said, I could be wrong whether they've actually ever addressed the energy name before. Like I said, it could just be a classic Doctor Who thing brought back for those really intense fanboys that know. But it's the first time I've ever heard of it, and there's quite a few different like kind of callbacks to nostalgic Doctor Who tech, like the time agents, like, and their vortex manipulator and the perception filter. These are supposed to these are kind of nice introductions to, if you've never watched the series before, if this is your first series, actually kind of just like subtly introducing them, not really making too much of a big deal, but so you know. Maybe they are going to bring it into like the later episodes of the Artron energy, of how they managed to get that energy, but that is for another episode, and we'll kind of go into that a bit later. And then we get to Ryan's character, and basically when they're first talking about Rosa Parks, and he thought that she was like a bus driver or something like that, and it was kind of like saying that he's a bit stupid. I mean, like, you know, saying that, oh, you had Rosa Parks as the name of your tutor group or name of your class, and you should know all these kind of historical things, but he doesn't. And then he kind of shows that emphasis of being like a bit stupid, but not. The story doesn't go too far with it. I mean, they could have made a few more jokes if you ask me, but then he kind of rolls it back. Maybe this is supposed to be a learning curve for him, or maybe even his dyspraxia, which makes him a little bit forgetful. And then we find the suitcase with the perception filter, and the guy with the blaster comes out, and finally we have the antagonist of the episode, trying to slowly nudge time. Like, at first we think that he's just trying to kill Rosa Parks, but I suppose it's kind of Chris Chibnall's way of, you know, only slightly giving you like little hints of the storyline slowly like unfolding as the episode comes. I mean, like, admittedly, he doesn't do it particularly well in this one. We kind of get right from the beginning, or when at least halfway through the episode we know what's going on. And he's not a big villain. He's never something that you really feel scared of. I suppose you're not really supposed to, as this whole episode revolves around them not fighting and them just trying to change history. Instead of them fighting him head on, they're just fighting him in terms of not changing history. Another thing that comes very true in this episode is Ryan is supposed to be the companion which asks the questions. Yaz and Graham is supposed to be the comic relief. Ryan's the guy which asks the question, kind of like Sarah Jane was. She's always like asking questions about the Doctor and learning things. Yaz, still not too sure of her. Not too sure what her point in all of this is. I mean, she's one of those things, she's not quite Ryan and she's not quite Grant. What is her purpose? We still don't know her arc. I mean, we get like 2 lines of her actually coming out in this entire episode of, oh, she's actually got some depth, but then it's very quickly brushed over. It's like they're trying to build up these other 2 characters, they kind of just completely forget Yaz. Then we get the temporal displacement blaster. We get that explained to us, and basically it's just this blaster thing which shoots you into another time zone as long as it's been set before. It's not killing you. It's kind of like the Weeping Angels. They kill you by sending you back into a past, like a way back, so time kills you effectively. But it was kind of like a mixture between like the Weeping Angels and Captain Jack. He had that vortex manipulator, things like that. So yeah, I thought we still don't know really what his backstory, this Casco, but I'll go for it later, but I think he'll be back. And then the Doctor had this really fantastic moment where they're kind of just like going through ideas, and it's a really funny moment because this episode's pretty heavy, the whole racial discrimination thing and like just the use of its language and like emotions is really heavy, but this bit is really funny when Graham asks, "What do you think you are, Banksy?" She's like, "Or am I?" It's a bit awkward when Officer Mason comes in. I'm not sure. At first I thought he might have been in on it, but it turns out he was just a general, like a discriminative officer of that time. And when Graham says that he's Steve Jobs, it's hilarious, and just that whole scene is just filled with comedy. This is like the first time really that it's actually dealt with this kind of discrimination and like actual history in such a realistic fashion. I mean, if you remember the Series 3 episode when Martha, the black assistant of David Tennant in Series 3, she goes back and like Victorian times, or even Elizabethan, it was Elizabethan times because it was Shakespeare, and she asked, well, isn't it a bit weird like a black woman walking down, the Doctor was like, no, just act like you belong, that people are a lot less racist than you feel. And it's nice actually having this much more realistic, much more gritty version of actually what happened and how people were treated back then. I mean, you actually felt that Ryan and Yaz were in danger, especially Ryan was in danger this whole episode, but not by the monsters for once, not by any like kind of space thing or aliens, just by people and just general history of the past. And that's another, like I said, it's completely different from last week's. Last week was just like complete sci-fi mega episode of like spacey time aliens, and now this is just really gritty history, and if anything it was much more emotion, much more danger. You felt like Ryan was in much more danger than he was in the previous episode. It's really nice seeing Ryan and Yaz having this deep discussion about racism, again giving this episode a lot more depth, a lot like more of like a dimension, and making you feel like how they're actually going through, how they're actually feeling, especially, like I said, Ryan, and some of the language that's used in this episode as well, the racially charged language as well, which is just interesting for a Doctor Who episode for them to be saying those kinds of things. But again, you can't say these things actually happen, these are actually how people feel. So again, they're not blazing over it, they're not just saying, no, it didn't happen, it's not happening, it's not happening in this episode. I suppose the whole narrative of this episode is we're not glossing through history of this, or maybe in this even series, so we're not glossing through history, we're not making it seem like it's something that it wasn't, this is what it was, and sometimes like it's worse actually how it was too, as opposed to all the fantasy and all the villains and aliens. So that's where this episode comes its most hard hitting, and it is a struggle, and you really feel through. I suppose the way this episode's been written, it's like it feels long and it feels a little bit drawn out, this whole because all of that episode happened in like a couple of like a day or so, but it felt like it was a lot longer than it was, and I suppose really emphasising the struggle. Then we get the bit where Graham talks to James Blake, the white bus driver who's supposed to tell Rosa to move, the heavily racist guy. That bit, like him when Bradley Walsh is talking about the Nan and how really like we finally actually getting a much deeper, him actually opening up and really feel that he's actually being affected and actually sad about the Nan dying, because in the last episode he's just trying to get Ryan to open up, he's not really showing any emotions, but now he did. But again, it's frustrating with this Chris Chibnall's writing. It's like we just get a glimpse of something, but not too much. It's trying to fit so much into this episode, but I really wanted to see more of it. I really wanted to feel actually more and open up that wound into Graham, but we didn't get that. So it's like kind of hinting at, hoping that we'll come back to it maybe again. I mean, we have got another 7 episodes to get through, so hopefully they will do that, but at the moment it's just annoying that it hasn't happened yet. I suppose it's just the whole dynamic now, because we've got 3 companions instead of just the 1, and then we have another one bring on later. Like with Amy Pond, we got her, we got all of her backstory and her in-depth and her nice moments, And then we got Rory coming into the TARDIS, but now we've got all these 3 new companions all at once, and I suppose it's not really time, it's a lot to take in, so I can kind of understand it. One thing I will though say now, like, the music. The music is either really good and really fitting, but it's not very Doctor Who-y. Like, it's just like, it feels a bit more kind of like Stranger Things, that kind of thing, and a bit sci-fi, but it just doesn't feel Doctor Who-y. Or maybe it's just the difference. I'm not saying I don't like it. I kind of feel the music in the episodes is 10 million times better than the theme song. I really do not like the theme song, but the music in the episode is good, and I'll kind of skip, you know, I'll say it now. Basically, the music at the end, the song Rise, was played, and they played that instead of the ending credits. And was I the only one that really mentioned that, really thought that's a bit weird, or is this the first time it's ever happening in a Doctor Who episode? And really, it's like, it was good, but I just didn't feel very Doctor Who-y. I'm saying, like, for the moment, for the whole what they were trying to get to, it's good, but it just doesn't feel like it fits the series. Then coming back to the episode story at hand, then Ryan gets off and he kind of follows Rosa Parks, and the Doctor's just okay with this. Normally, remember the episode of David Tennant and Mickey and Rose, and, you know, they go to the parallel universe, and he doesn't want them touching anything, but now he's just okay with them just going off and doing anything in the past, where, especially when we know there's this alien which is trying to change history. They don't really know what's happening at the moment, but they're trying to do this, and she's just letting them go off. But then again, we kind of get this whole thing. She's giving them each tasks in what to do, kind of saying, I can't do this on my own. This is bigger than me. Let's all work together. And they each get given their own separate tasks. Where Ryan goes off and follows Rosa, Yaz went to the tailor, Graham went to the bus depot, and the Doctor went to what we found out is his name is Krasko, who's like some prisoner guy from the future that's killed thousands of people. Again, maybe this is like something that, because we didn't really, maybe it's just something that's been glossed over, or maybe it's got something to link with the Stenza, you know, that overarching baddie. Maybe it has got something to do with them, or maybe it's just another alien. He didn't seem very Stanza-ish. But anyway, so he has this neurotransmitter in his brain that means he can't kill, and the way the Doctor just destroyed his things kind of makes you think, like, you know, why is she just destroying his things? It's a bit more thuggish than maybe, and she doesn't really have the attitude to go with it. Normally the Doctor would just use his words, or the Doctor's words, to really emphasise, or use the sonic screwdriver instead of bashing it into a million pieces. But then throwing the suitcase at him when he was about to send her back in time, sending that back in time was a nice way of kind of not destroying it, but at the same time getting rid of it. But then again, where's the sonic screwdriver? They made such a big deal of the sonic screwdriver. It just doesn't feel like they're using it enough to me. But then again, like I say, this is back in history. There's not really a lot that they could have done with this, apart from really with Krasko. It's Ryan that goes and meets Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks' family, and it kind of feels like a bit like a history episode at this point, but I suppose that's what Doctor Who was initially meant to be. Instead of like a sci-fi show, it's more just like a history show and educating people, and you kind of do get to, because this is a nice bit of TV, because, you know, I don't know too much about the whole Rosa Parks thing. I know obviously about the history and what's happened, but not too much. I didn't really know about the bus driver, and I certainly didn't know that she knew Martin Luther King, or how they dealt with people of Pakistani or like mixed race, or what they thought was Mexican, with Yaz on the buses. That was all these kind of questions that you always think but you don't really ask. And then when they get back together and the Doctor does this big speech about, oh, like, yeah, we're gonna like sort history out and blah blah blah. It's just, and she kind of goes through like what you already know, instead of like it slowly feeding it to you so you get an idea. She has this kind of way of, in the writing, it's like, oh, I'm going to say exactly what's going on, even though it's kind of being really hinted, and you kind of know what's going on, and just going on about it, making these big monologues, when it doesn't need, every episode doesn't need to have a huge massive monologue, right, just summing up the action, but because you should already know, you've been paying attention that much, and you should know what's been going on, just from a storytelling point of view. Then we found out that James Blake has had the rotor change, which is a very unfuturistic, very modern way of getting someone out, instead of blasting them to the future, or he could have done any of that, or he could have just killed him, or maybe not killed him, or just done something to just change the rotor. Was a really nice way of them of actually getting rid of James Blake and thus moving the story along. Then after Bradley Walsh and Ryan Sinclair going to meet James Blake, and there's an awkward encounter with Ryan and James Blake, and it kind of feels at this point it's like, why, you know, come on, Ryan, you kind of get this feeling like, come on, Ryan, get angry at him. You want to do something, just punch him already. You really feel that for Ryan, and it's him like trying to suppress his anger and just ignore it. I think he mentions before, just ignore it, and you just want to see a bit more emotion from him. That's what I wanted to see from him. You know, I would have celebrated that, but no. And then it finds out that Crisco has broken the bus again. He's one step ahead of them, not really using these alien ways or futuristic ways of dealing with things. Just, you know, broken down bus. Can't go to work. There we go. Very present day, or, you know, around modern day. And then we get the standoff between Ryan and Crisco. When he put the cart in the middle of the road, and at this point you can tell Ryan's getting really angry. But was I the only one that thought that Crisco changed his accent for some reason? Was that just me, or like, am I remembering things wrong? Am I just thinking, oh, he didn't sound that British the first couple of times we saw him, but now he does? Is that just me, or like I say, tell me in the comment section below whether you thought that as well, because I certainly did, and it'd be nice to know that someone else thought the same as me. But then we come to the big series arc. Well, what I said last week, and it's kind of all connecting up. Ryan teleports him, like, you know, blasts him into the future. And I said last week, when the people on the devastation planet just kind of teleported, and the first episode where the Stenza guy, Tim Shaw, got teleported into the future back to his own planet. And I said last week, are they going to do this for the whole of the episode? Kind of joking. And now that Ryan did it as well, he got rid of him like that. That's what I'm thinking. Like, I don't think anymore that it's just a coincidence. Like, twice could be a coincidence, but 3 times I don't think it is. I think that all these baddies and all these things that are happening are linked in some way, and that's what's going to be happening with the series arc. Right at the end, these people, they're not been going to that. They've been blasted to this other place, or I know you potentially, because Ryan had no idea where he's blasted them to. We have no idea where these other people have gone from last week, and the Tim Shaw thing, we don't know whether that's all linked to those 2 places as well. So, like I say, that's just me. Like, that's just what I'm thinking. I could be right. I'm probably wrong, but I could be right, and that's what I'm thinking. Tell me what you think the series arc is going to be. But that's, like I say, what I'm thinking at the moment, until we build up a bit more of an arc. Though, remember, this is only episode 3. Then we get the final climax of the episode, which is weird because there wasn't a big standoff, there wasn't fighting, it was just literally, will this piece of history play out in front of us? And that's a different kind of tension that we've ever really had in Doctor Who. And Bradley Walsh's character Graham, he just didn't want to be a part of this, obviously because of his nan, and he's like, no, I can't say no, I can't be a bad person. But that's what they had to do. They had to be bad people and not give up, not help her out. They had to just let history play. And I suppose that's part of what the Doctor does. Sometimes she changes things, and, wibbly wobbly timey stuff, and sometimes you just have to watch it, even the bad bits. And that's what this was. There's a bad thing that happened, but obviously the things that would happen because of it were much better off. And there's a bit of this tension. I don't know why, you kind of knew what was going to happen, and the time wasn't going to change. It's like being built up there. It's like, was she going to sit down? Was she going to stand up for them? And, kind of think, have they sorted out time? And then when you did, you really felt this sense of relief. Much more so than you have in any other episode as well. And that's literally just a woman not wanting to stand up and move for someone else. And that's, again, a really powerful piece of writing, piece of television they've done. Literally, I was glued to the TV much more in this one episode than I was for most, any of the other episodes. Sometimes, admittedly, the story was kind of this is, like I said before, the story felt like it was a bit long, but then again, this is one day in the life of that's going to be changed. And I suppose that it really shows how shocked we are. This is 60 odd years later, and we're this is really bad that happened. We can't believe, I personally couldn't believe that kind of stuff used to happen, but it did, and we can't gloss over it, and that's kind of what this episode did. It didn't gloss over it. It really hit hard, and that was a good episode. It wasn't sci-fi. At points, it didn't really feel Doctor Who, but in terms of television, in terms of what it was, in terms of the story, I thought it was really good. Even if you didn't like the whole sci-fi, didn't like the story, in terms of history, to see that enacted was really powerful. And now we come to what you've been waiting for, my verdict. What do I think out of 10 for this episode? Like I say, it wasn't very Doctor Who-y, but in terms of what it was, let's just look at this episode individually, and we've got, you know, so many things, so many different arcs, and so many, like, this piece of history. Then to go back and do this was absolutely fantastic as like a one-off. It didn't need to be any longer than it was, and this just episode as it was, just one episode, I would say was better than the last 2 episodes, and I would even give it like an 8.5. Yeah. Do you agree? What do you think? Some of you probably say, no, I'd definitely not give it that. Or, you know, tell me in the comment section below what you thought. What did I get wrong? What did I get right? What would you put this episode as? And if, like I say, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to Planet Mark and hit a bell notification to be told of the next great upload. I do this every Sunday as soon as I can, as soon as we watch the episode live, the Doctor Who Sunday review. And check out our other 2 episodes for episode 1, The Woman Who Fell to Earth, and episode 2, The Ghost Monument, right here on Planet Mark right now. See you next Sunday, guys. Bye, 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 bye.